Alright, what's up guys? Okay, so let's go over the very basics of Fusion 360 for CAM. We're gonna go over just the drawing basics and the interface. Okay, so I got this part right here. We're gonna draw this up. Very simple part. If you never used Fusion 360, it may not be that simple. You just gotta get familiar with the layout of the software and the process. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file. So I already have Fusion 360 open, so if it open, I'm going to go over here to my top screen and you see the tabs I have. These are files I already have open. Okay, I have this plate 3.14.5 file, and I got this first assignment drawing file. Alright, so I click that little plus sign right there and it opens up a new file. Okay, it doesn't have a name, so I'm gonna go ahead and save it, and I'm gonna save it as, okay, so before you save it, I would suggest always saving it wherever your blueprint or you're working off of. This one's Intro to CAM 2020. Save it as Intro to CAM 2020. It just keeps things a lot simpler. So I'll go ahead and go save. I'm gonna go Intro to CAM 2020. Hit save. Okay, so got our file saved here. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to create a new sketch plane, or create a sketch. Alright, so I'm gonna go over here, click here. It doesn't really matter what view you have. It's simpler if you keep the view that when you bring it into a drawing. I don't know, but you got to think ahead, kind of. You know, when you make a blueprint, what is like the top view or front view? It's simpler if you keep that in mind. So when you're gonna make a drawing, I'm gonna go ahead and put in top view. Okay, I like to have like my main profile and shape of the part in top. So when I make a blueprint, my top view is in the top view. Alright, so select the plane. Alright, so if you look at the drawing, we got a 2.5 inch rectangle, 2.5 inches by 6 inches, and it's a 1/2 inch thick, right? So I'm gonna go to rectangle, and you can also hit R on your keyboard too. So I just clicked R on my keyboard, and it's the hotkey. Because I'm recording my screen, for some reason that didn't work. It usually does. So I can hit R on my keyboard and just go click on 2-point rectangle. Okay, so it needs two values. It needs a vertical distance and a horizontal distance. Okay, now you could toggle back and forth. Say that for some reason you want to do the horizontal first. If I hit tab on my keyboard, it'll toggle to the horizontal distance. If I hit toggle again, it'll toggle back to the vertical distance. So I got a 2.5 inch by a 6 inch rectangle, and if you look at the drawing here, it's got a 1 inch cutout right here that starts 2.5 inches from the right side, okay, and goes 1 inch deep. So I'm gonna go back and create another rectangle, and remember you have different snap points on each one of these lines, okay, or line, circle, point, they all have snap points. When I hover my cursor over to the left, you see how my cursor changes from a X to a square? That's it's basically picking up there's a corner and snap point there. That type of snap point will be an end point. Now if I hover my cursor to the middle of a line, the cursor changes and you see a triangle now. That's indicating that there's a midpoint there. And if I hover to the end here, I got an end point. So you got end points and midpoints. You also got center points too when you work with radiuses and arcs. So I'm gonna start off drawing from this edge. The reason why is because the rectangle I draw will be constrained to this line. It just makes things simpler. Now notice, whatever you do, you don't want to start from the mid, okay? Because that will constrain the rectangle to the middle of this line. And you don't want to do that unless it needs to be that way. But in this case, it doesn't. So I'm gonna go over, start here, and see how I hover my cursor? I kind of picks up a dash line right there. Basically, it's picking up the midpoint of this line. I'm going to ignore that because that's not the right distance. So I'm going to kind of go up a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and type in 1 inch. Hit tab, type in 1 inch. Alright. Now, this rectangle, or square I just drew up, it's supposed to be 2.5 inches from the right. That edge, that line. So I'm gonna go over to my dimensions, and a dimension is pretty much a type of constraint. And I'm gonna click this line first, the part that I want to move, and then I'm gonna click on this line. Okay, now when I do that, I have like a floating dimension right here. I have to click the place where I want it. Like I can, I usually just put it up here, off to the side where you can see it better. And it's supposed to be 1 inch. Oops, not 1 inch. 2.5 inches. Okay, so here's the example. Say that you accidentally entered the wrong distance, and you need to change it. Okay, don't worry about hitting undo. I mean, yeah, you could hit undo, or you could also double click this dimension and just retype it in. So you get 2.5. All right, yeah, 2.5. That's gonna look weird. Looks out of proportion. Okay, so that's how dimensions work. Another useful tool is the trim tool right here. Okay, trim pretty much trims up geometry. And the icon, the scissors, is a very useful icon. All right, so I'm going to click on the geometry that I don't want. So I'm gonna click this line right here, and let's see, it didn't disappear. That's because I had a line on top of the line. Basically, I drew a rectangle. If I drew a rectangle that overlapped it, it didn't really overlap it, but there's the edge of this line right here overlaps this long line. Okay, so I'm gonna trim it again, and that time it disappeared because I trimmed 2 lines there. All right, I'm gonna hit save. Anytime I do a decent amount of work, I hit save. I just get in the habit of it. There's an autosave function, but it's I don't know. It's a good habit to hit save. I don't mean use autosave because you get in the habit of not saving and letting the software save for it. And for some reason, you don't have autosave on. You may spend an hour doing work and something happens and you lose your file and you just wasted an hour. So it's just a good habit to hit save very often. Okay, so I have 2 holes. They're 4 inches apart. They're 1 inch diameter and 1.25 inches up. Okay. There's a few different ways to draw this. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm just going to go to click on circle, and I'm going to eyeball where the first one goes. Okay. I could either just type in 1 inch right here, but say I don't. Say that I just drew up a random size circle. I can either go to dimension, or I can also hit D for dimension on my keyboard and to dimension the circle out. So we go 1 inch, and I'm going to draw another circle. Another thing you can do, instead of eyeballing another circle here, you can also kind of hover over the center point of this circle and drag your cursor across. Now I didn't click nothing, I just hovered the mouse and then type in 1 inch or whatever. Now vertically this circle is aligned with this one. Okay, now we still have to vertically dimension the distance for this circle. Okay, so if you look at the drawing, it's 1 1/4 up and 4 inches apart, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to dimension, and I'm gonna click here and here, type in 1.25, and yeah, it looks right. Now it didn't move this one, okay? I gotta also show you something. Well, yeah, we won't do it. So I'm gonna go to dimension here, click on this circle. Sometimes you'll click dimension, you go click on the circle, and it doesn't do nothing. Not really sure what it is. Maybe just the processor, the computer, kind of hung up or delayed. I usually just by habit, I hit escape and re-enter it. Alright, so we go 1.25. They're gonna be 4 inches apart. Now, this whole pattern is 1 inch over from the edge, okay? So I gotta make sure that, I mean, right now, currently, these two circles are 4 inches apart, but that doesn't mean they're in the correct position, okay? They're the correct distance apart from each other, but in the correct distance relative to the overall geometry of the part, no. So I'm gonna hit D for dimension, and I'm gonna come over here, and I'm gonna select this line. And we'll go 1 inch. Double check, make sure I got everything right. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and hit save. And now I'm gonna extrude this into a solid. So I can either click right here and go to solid and basically open up the toolbar for all my solid tools. Or on my keyboard I can just hit E for extrude and click on my part right here. Now if I extrude as is, so what I can do is I can pull this little arrow up and hit enter. So I have the part like that, but say this happens. Say you go to extrude it, you click here, and you actually click an element or entity that you don't actually want to extrude. Like I don't want to extrude that. So like say for example, I actually extrude it like that. That's not really what I want to do. So in case that happens, what you can do, all you have to do is just come over here and click on that entity again, okay, and it unselected or deselected that circle right there. So I'm gonna pull up 0.5 and hit enter. Okay. Now there's some other functions too, the 3D stuff. Hold on. Bruce, sit down. Sit. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Sit down, man. Sit. Sit. Okay, so there's some other functions in here. You know, let's not finish up Sketch yet. Let me show you something else too. Say that you get one of these dimensions the wrong size. Okay, there's a few ways to edit it. The easiest way, what I like to use is I like to just go back into Sketch, right click, and go to Edit Sketch, and it reopens this up. And then what you could do is you can go in here, double click a dimension, and change it for whatever. If you got something wrong, you go there and just fix it. Sometimes you may or may not have to completely delete some geometry and redraw it up. Okay. Say for example you needed, you're actually supposed to have another hole right here for some reason, right? So you can edit the sketch, and then you go over here to finish sketch, and it'll finish it. Now, it didn't add the extra hole because what I would need to do in that case, say that I had a little bitty circle right here that was supposed to be in the model. Just because I edited the sketch, the software doesn't actually know that I was wanting to select that hole to be that circle to be a hole, so it just re-rendered the model without that. So what I could do, I'm gonna go back, edit sketch. Instead of going to finish sketch right here, what I could do is just hit E again for extrude, reselect my surface of my closed profile here, and pull up and go 0.5. Okay. Okay. Sometimes you'll run into stuff like this. If you look right here, it didn't actually cut out that circle right there. Okay, so we need to figure out why. It could be a couple different things. It looks like what I did. Okay, so this is what happened when I re-extruded. What it did is it actually created a second body. So there's actually two 3D models there, right? So I could do. Oops. I could delete the first body and be done with it. Another thing, I'm gonna hit undo for a second. Okay, so another thing, sometimes you'll see something like this. So you created a solid, but you still have like a circle right there. And usually, what the problem is with that is if you go into your sketch to the little arrow drop down, you have show and hide, the little eyeball to the left right there, the little eye symbol. That's your show and hide sketch. So I can hide that. Okay. But in this case, what I really need to do is actually have two models right there. Now, one thing about Fusion 360 is they sometimes you'll get on Fusion 360 and it works different, okay? And it's kind of annoying, but it's a good thing because they're constantly updating it. Because it's a cloud-based software, regularly you'll get it on the software and they like move some tools over, or like one of the tools I usually use isn't there, okay? They're always experimenting, and the software interface actually changes, or how the process works will be different. It's kind of a pain teaching it because, I'll tell y'all you gotta do this and this and this, and then I go to show y'all, and they did update and change the software or change the process, but they're constantly changing it and then seeing, measuring user experience and trying to make the software, add functionality to it, make it more user friendly, minimize steps, and sometimes it's kind of annoying, but overall, the software keeps getting better and better. Okay, so I have this part right here. Now, say for example, I didn't really actually want that hole, okay, which I don't. I could hit undo and undo that extra circle I drawn, or I could actually zoom into it and click the wall, the inside wall right there. Now you have to click the inside wall, okay? Like if I'm in top view, I'm gonna deselect that, and I just click here or here. It's not really gonna delete the way I want to. You kind of gotta turn at an angle, and it helps to zoom in, make sure you select the right thing. And you click the inside wall, then on your keyboard hit delete, okay? I'm gonna undo that for a second. You could also right click and go to delete. I would suggest just using the delete key on your keyboard. Get familiar with it, where you just click it. It's much faster if you just get used to doing it. You kind of automate that. Like right clicking is an extra step. You have to right click and then go to delete. Okay, it's just easier just hitting delete. Alright, so I'm gonna hit save, and that's my part right there. Okay, now let's talk about some of the 3D tools here. Now you could draw this part different ways. Say for example that you drew your main rectangle of your body, into two holes right here, but you didn't have this cutout. And here, I'm gonna get rid of this cutout for a second. And there's two ways I can get rid of this cutout right here. I can use my extrude tool, and so you extrude, you can create geometry or delete it. You can also kind of modify it some. So if I click that face of that cutout, I can drag it up some. Now, say for example, you don't know what this distance is from here to here. Now, yeah, you could use your inspect tool, which is your measuring tool. But to make things simpler, since I already started moving this face and the software knows that's what I'm editing, if I click on this face right here, it'll jump right up. Okay. So I just extruded that portion out of it. I'm gonna hit undo. Control Z for undo. You also have press pull. Press pull, you could do all kinds of functions too. Some of the functions are the same. Some of them, sometimes they work a little bit different. On something like this right here, I like using the extrude. Press pull, you can also do stuff like change the diameter of a circle. I'm gonna hit escape to undo that because I don't want to change that. Okay, so measuring parts or features or entities. This inspect tool is your measure tool. So if I click on this line right here, it's 2.5 inches. Sometimes what you'll want to do, say if I want to measure a distance from here to the circle. I want to click up the midpoint of the circle. Sometimes it may be kind of a pain. You may have to move your part at an angle. So it gave me my vertical, horizontal distance, and my angle distance. Now, that's because I have my show snap points and my X, Y, Z delta in there. I'm going to uncheck these and hit escape and do this one more time and show you what happens. Sometimes you may have trouble with the measuring tool, and it's just the settings within the measuring tool. Sometimes it's just a pain either way. But anyways, so I'm trying to click the inside of the circle right here. I want to get the center point of the circle to this edge, right? Now, when I hover over the center of the circle, I don't have a center point. Alright? Now, if I click right here, what you'll see, it gives me the distance from here to the edge of the hole. That's not what I want. So, I'm going to escape, go to I again. This time, I'm going to show snap points. And now, it'll let me pick the center of that circle here. Okay. Now the problem with this, it gives me a dimension from this corner to the center of the circle. That's good and all, but I want to know. Say I want to know the horizontal distance right there. If I do X, Y, Z delta, it'll work off the Cartesian coordinates. It'll be horizontally and vertically. It won't give you the closest distance. Okay. That you selected from. So I'm going to click this checkbox. Now you see my vertical distance and my horizontal. So that's the measuring tool. Okay. Oh yeah, the extrude. So we use the extrude tool to actually create a solid model from the geometry we made. Okay. Now sometimes you'll want to cut out a pocket or something. Let me show you an example. So I want to cut out a square in the middle of that part. Okay. Actually, let's make it a slot. So I want to cut out some kind of feature in that part. All right. It can even be a counter board. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click the face of this part because I'm gonna create a sketch on there. Now, if I was cutting out from the bottom or side, I would want to create that. I would want to select that surface when creating a sketch plane. But anyways, so what I could do is I could draw, I could use one of these entities, like a snap point or something off of it as a reference point, or I could just straight up just draw a rectangle. It's a good habit to when you create a piece of geometry, circle or rectangle, to eyeball where it's going to go. Basically put it where it looks like it's in proportion. Okay, and The reason why is because when you go to dimension it or constrain it to a certain feature you're referencing off of, if the geometry is close, it makes things a lot easier. There can be some hang-ups if you don't. Alright, so I drew a square, a rectangle, and I'm going to hit D for dimension, and I'm going to reference off of, let's reference off of this. So say that with this rectangle, I don't know the width of the rectangle, but I know it needs to be 1/4 inch off the side from this center cutout right here, right? So I'm gonna go 0.25. So it does that, and then I get dimension this side right here. I'm gonna get 1/4 inch, and say it needs to be 1/4 inch from the bottom. So I can do something like that. Also have a radius. I call it radius tool. Fusion 360 calls it fillet, but being a machinist, I just call it radius. And I could do a couple things. I could pull it down to get to the proper dimension, or I can just enter it. Say 1/4 inch. I could also select multiple radiuses and then tell it's 1/4 inch. I hit extrude cut, and I'm going to select that geometry I drew. So cut. So basically, I have my sketch plane on the surface part. So if I pull down into the part, the operation type automatically goes to cut. Okay. If I pull up, it'll go to join most of the time. Sometimes it'll go to new body. Now you don't want it on new body. If I go to new body, I didn't draw onto the model. I didn't make the model have a raised surface. I basically drew a second model. So I actually have two 3D models right here. Okay, you don't really want that. So I'm gonna hit undo, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to extrude again. I'm gonna click here, and when I pull up, I want to make sure I have it joined. So basically, the volume you're creating from pulling that geometry up as a raised surface, it will connect it to, it will join it to the current model that you're working off of, right? And as you can see on their bodies right here, it's one body, it's one 3D model, right? I'm gonna hit undo. I don't really need that. Cut. We don't cut, but so I could cut through. If I have a through hole or a part that it goes all the way through, you could enter the distance right there. It's just easier to pull down. Now, what I like to do, say that you pull down, you hit OK, and you look at it, and well, sometimes you won't pull down far enough. Okay, and let's see. Sometimes you're from the viewpoint that you're at, it looks like you pulled down and you hit OK, and it's like, oops, I didn't go far enough, right? What I like to do is just make this a habit. You have to really think about it. You just automatically do it. But when you pull down, I usually exaggerate how far I'm going down. I just pull down really far. Okay, just exaggerate the hell out of it. And you'll never have to hit undo for not cutting through far enough. Okay, so I have something like that. Now say that you don't really want that. You want to delete this. Okay, if I just hit delete right here, it has an error. Okay, the best way to do this, I usually, well, what you can do is you can select all of this rectangle. And hit delete. I'm gonna hit undo for a second, or you could just delete the radiuses. So like I deleted that radius, and come over here, delete this one, delete that one. Now if I come over here and delete that wall, it actually deletes. Sometimes it won't actually delete the whole thing. And let's see, I think that's about it for this one. Let's see. Go to the cutout feature, the edit sketch. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. That's all we're gonna go. That's all we're gonna do on this video. I'll make another video in a bit. But that's pretty much like the core basics of Fusion 360. Now there's a lot more stuff, okay? Keep in mind, we're just in design mode. We still have to go to CAM, okay? The CAM module, they've changed, I renamed it. It's now called Manufacture. And that's how you're gonna create toolpaths to program, to program a CNC. You need a G-code script. So in order to make a G-code script, you have to have toolpaths, okay? And this is how you make toolpaths. That's a whole nother animal, okay? Actually, I think the toolpaths, there's probably more stuff to the toolpaths than the design section of Fusion 360. So you have design, you draw models. Now it doesn't have to be a 3D model, you can draw 2D stuff too, but Fusion 360 is 3D software, so keep that in mind. Generative design, that's a whole nother animal. That's like the computer actually generates different options, design options that you could use for strength, and so basically you can design a part that you can, you enter properties and settings you want in there, how much weight's going to be applied to a certain surface, and it'll generate different possibilities to show you like the strength, like where the part's being stressed at. Render, once you draw your model, you can render it so it looks more realistic. Animation, you basically kind of simulate. Now don't get how you can make an animation. This is good for videos and stuff. You want to show like how some components work together as an assembly. Now the simulation model is basically you could do strength test. Show you how much load's being applied. This will aid you in the design process. Manufacture, that's your CAM, toolpaths, and drawing. That's how you can make a print. And just remember to hit save and save your files with the correct name and location, and you're good.